Rob, job done. You got the bonus point win. You're in the home tie in the round of 16, but I can't imagine you're that happy with that display.
Well, I think maybe that's the thing. We've got to get better at being happier about just winning. Sometimes, quite clearly we've got bits to work on. It's a really, really difficult match in terms of, travelling away last week, travelling back, then you've broken up with the weather and what have you, training-wise. But we're getting better at dealing with those. Quite nice to name a team at the start of the week and have that team actually play as well. That was quite a nice change. So we're sort of working our way through a few of our issues. Nowhere near where we want to be yet. But also, I think we've got to get better at recognising a couple of real good performances from a couple of young guys there, and a couple of older guys, and a W and a home game in the next round, which are really, really important from a supporter point of view, but also from a club point of view.
Did that have quite a big impact, the South African thing, and coming back off that, all the travelling that you've done?
I think it's not necessarily a negative impact. It's just, if you're not used to doing it, it's like anything. It's we don't get back till Monday. And we've flown overnight, and the food that guys have had, and lack of sleep, and all that sort of stuff. So once you've done it, you go, all right, well, I know what to do next time. But until guys do it a bit more often, or more teams do it, and share that information, once you start doing that, the easier it gets. But the reality is, it is a long haul flight. It was a fantastic trip last week. Don't get me wrong. It was a really, really good trip. We played some good rugby. Fair play to the Bulls. They were good, but we learnt a lot on that trip. The lads learnt a lot, and we come away in a better place because of it. This week again, we've learned there's a lot of pressure on that game for a lot of the guys, because everybody knows we've got to win that, and we should win that one.
First 20 minutes or so was a tough watch for everyone, really. Both sides were struggling, weren't they?
It's just so error-stricken, and that's one of our things. I'll make no bones about it. We've got to get on top of that, just in terms of how many errors we're making early on in games. We've got to get a lot better at just getting the ball in front of the forwards or in front of the players, and just getting onto the front foot, because there's a lot of effort. I mean, we're trying really hard, but in a way, I think we're almost. Sometimes you can be a little bit more pragmatic and just keep the ball in front of folk.
And when you had extra men, you exploited it at the end, but maybe you didn't in and around half time at all.
Yeah, it did. It took a little while. And as I say, when there's that many, suddenly you have that rash of penalties in the second half. Again, that's something as a group we've got to really, really take in hand, because it's just too many. I mean, and it's a weekly thing. We've probably got to change what we're doing and how we're talking about that, because it's not changing. So sometimes you've got to do something different to change that behaviour. That breaks up the game, and then you can't get the pressure on.
Driving more went very well, got a couple of penalty tries out of it.
Yeah, our close game's really, really good. I mean, I was pleased. A scrum, while not perfect, was certainly better than it has been. We've tweaked a few, reset our foundations on that, so that will continue to improve. Maul is, our Maul on our 5-yard game has been great. We've scored a lot of tries on that, but we got to do more.
Lovely to have a home round of 16 tie. I think you're going to be second or third seedings in the pool, so you're going to have some attractive opposition here at some point. That's a big financial boost to the club.
Yeah, so I think the home game is really important from a club and supporter point of view, because it's a massive deal to us. In terms of who that is, there's going to be no easy games from here on. There never is in Europe. Having said that, you just got to win the next game, and then you just win the next game after that. And you string a couple of games together, and before you know it, you're in a semi and a final. That's the important bit with that. But certainly, right now, we've got a bit of work to do to make sure we're ready for next week. Obviously, we're going to be missing a load of guys in training next week as they all disappear off to international stuff. So, we'll see who we've got left on the pitch, and we'll go at Gloucester, because that's a super important game for us next week.
Yeah, you finished the previous block very well. It'd be nice to carry that on, won't it?
Yeah, 100%. They're a very dangerous team, a really, really well drilled and well coached team with good players. It's so competitive in the league at the moment. It's a tough league, so we've got to make sure we're bang on next week to make sure we get the points.
And your next two against teams in and around you in the table, so it's stopping them.
Every game's in and around you. Other than Surrey's, every game's in and around you in the table. It's pretty congested. But yeah, so important matches all the way through. I mean, we'll get a chance by the time we play the game after next week. We'll have quite a few bodies back on deck, hopefully out of the physio room, which will be a very, very welcome boost.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rob.
Rob, in terms of it, it was a tough ask, because you didn't know what sort of squad Castres were going to bring in. Probably a bomb squad at best, wasn't it? They had nothing, but that makes them more dangerous.
It makes them very dangerous, because they can attack breakdowns willy-nilly. They can do whatever they like. They can niggle. It just makes it a very, very difficult game. But that's rugby. That's European rugby. That's when you've got to focus entirely on yourself and making sure that your own game plan is bang on, and you stay entirely focused on that. That's not always easy, but certainly again we're a better team for another game today. And whilst we have had our highs and lows this season so far, this place is still a very difficult place to come and win, and we're still making sure we maintain that. It's very important to us that we maintain this place as a difficult place to come and play, and it is. The lads are putting a ton of effort in. We've got some great young players coming through. I'm looking at Hodgie over there, running around. He gives me kittens most of the time, but every time he touches the ball, he's electric. So we're in a good. We've got a lot to be pleased about. So we've just got to maintain that momentum and keep moving forward.
There's been a lot of chat about the so-called Exeter Exodus for next season and beyond, but from your coaching position, you're seeing the seeds of fruits coming through now. You're talking about those two Welsh lads. You're talking about Hodgie. There's a lot of good things still happening.
Rob said it the other day. Like the lads leaving isn't a bad thing. I know everybody sort of goes, "Oh gosh, there's a big turnover." It just so happens that they all arrived at the same point together. In most cases they would have dripped away over a couple of years, but because of COVID and everything else, squads have stayed together a little bit longer. We are going to be having massive change, but that's not necessarily a terrible thing. I think the guys going out, it's really, really important that we try recognise the achievements that they've made and had over the last few years, and hopefully still will have over the course of the season. I mean, there's no elephant in the room there for us. I think some of them are going on for great opportunities, and they deserve every minute of that, or however you look at it. They've put a huge shift in for this club. We're super proud of what they've done and achieved. I don't think they owe the club anything. They've more than done their bit, so we wish them well. By the same token, I'm looking at Dafford and thinking, right, how many games will he play for this club? Could be hundreds. Chris the same. Greg Fislow, Josh. The next group are coming through, and they're ripping the backs, the shirts off the backs of the guys ahead. And the reality is they're the guys that hopefully these guys will be clapping for the next 10 years.
Equally, we're hearing the messaging from those guys that want to leave. They want to finish on a high, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Of course they do. As I say, it's not. There is a lot going, I know, but it's not as big a drama as folk think. It's sad because it is a breakup. Some of us have been together. I've known some of the guys since they were, 15, 16 years old. So some of us have been together for a long time. So perhaps, the reality is that now is the right time.